Alrighty, so on your line paper, what I'm going to have you do, and don't feel like you have to write all of this down. Really, what I want you to do for number 1 and number 2, we talked about how to find radius or diameter on a circle given the radius or diameter, meaning you're going to find the opposite of what's there. So we're going to practice this first. Again, don't feel like you have to write all the words down that you see. I would honestly, on your paper, for number 1, I would write down the diameter. I'm going to give you the diameter and tell you it's 3 meters. And we're going to find the radius. And then for number 2, you can draw that picture. And in that picture there, notice I'm showing you the radius and it's 14 feet. So you can absolutely write that down, and then we're going to find the diameter. So let's just go back and review that real quick. If you have that diameter, that 3 meters, now I didn't draw a picture for number 1, but if you feel like you need to, then by all means you can, right? So if you need to see visually what that looks like, it's all the way across and it goes through the center. All right, so your diameter goes all the way across end to end through the center point, 3 meters. Well, remember the radius is half of that. The radius is only this piece right here from the center point to one end of the circle. So remember, you have to cut that in half, which means you're going to take and do 3 divided by 2. And you're going to have a radius of 1.5 meters. There's your final on that one. Okay, radius, half of it, half the diameter, 1.5. Number 2, if I give you the picture at the radius of 14 feet, now we need that diameter, which means this has to now stretch all the way across, and so double it. So to find that diameter, we're going to take that radius of 14 feet, and we're going to multiply it by 2, and you're going to have a diameter of 28 feet. Done for that one, right? And that's important. We need to know how to find radius and diameter because it helps us with our formula for circumference. And so that's the next thing that we're going to look at for a minute. Find the circumference. We talked about this formula the other day, and we said to find the circumference, the perimeter around the circle. It's pi times diameter. And I gave you this little saying to remember, cherry pie delicious. Remember I said the C in cherry stands for C for circumference. The P in pi represents that pi, that Greek symbol there for math. And then D in delicious stands for the D in the diameter there. Again, one way just to help you remember that formula that you'll use. So this that we're going to practice, finding the circumference on number 3. Here's the circle I'm giving you, and it has a diameter of 70 inches. Now, I want to show you using the pi key, and I'm going to compare it to if you just round it and use 3.14, right? 3.14, it's still pi, but it's the rounded version of it. So I want you to see the difference between both of those. So we're going to use the pi key first. That's why I put letter A here. So I can zoom in a little bit more for you. And so using the pi key, if you look at your calculator, this here, on these TI-30s, the pi key is in this first column down here. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 buttons down on the left-hand side of that calculator. That's the pi key that we're going to use. And so when I click on it or press it on my calculator, you're going to see it just puts that Greek symbol in the calculator for you. And by doing that, it gives you the infinite decimal that you need for pi. And so we are going to use this. We're going to see how this looks and how it compares to just using 3.14. So for letter A, finding the circumference, right? We're going to use the pi key on the calculator, and we're going to multiply it by the diameter. Well, I give you the diameter in number 3. So if I give you the diameter, that means here, right, we're going to multiply it by 70. If I give you the diameter, it just plugs right into that formula. So now when I calculate this, when I put this in my calculator, I'm going to press the pi key like I just showed. And then you can hit multiplication, or you can just right next to it put 70. And so now when I hit equals, I get a really big decimal on my calculator screen. Now understand, your calculator screen is only so big, and using the pi key, knowing it's an infinite decimal, there's actually more to this answer. You just don't see it because the screen on your calculator is cutting it off. Now, let's say I ask you to round this to the nearest hundredth, 2 places past the decimal. So that means the circumference, around that circle is 219.91, 2 places past the decimal. Now, if I look at the third spot, the thousandths, that's a 1 right there. And knowing that that's a 1, I don't need to round the hundredths up. So 219.91 is going to be my circumference here. Nearest hundredth, I had you round. Now I have this in inches. So you're just going to say inches. Final right here. And that's using the pi key. 219.91. Now let's use this same circle and the same diameter, but instead we're going to round and use 3.14. So that means I'm going to take the rounded version of pi, 3.14, times the 70 in the diameter. And what we're going to notice is how different, and not really how different, but how there's a small change in what your decimal looks like. So 3.14, do this, times 70, rounded version of pi. So you see, when you round pi, you do see that different decimal, 219.8. And since that's all it gives us on the calculator, that's what we're going to put. It's actually already rounded to the nearest tenth for us. So 219.8 inches. So when you compare the two, right, we look at the two answers. Letter A was using the pi key. It gives you the most accurate answer you could possibly get using that pi key. And letter B is the rounded version of it, right? So it's a rounded answer. Are these two answers still close? Absolutely they are. They're off just a tiny little bit, and that's okay. So when we practice today, we are going to practice using the pi key. But if you, while you're working on your worksheet today, use 3.14, or you forget and you use the pi key, whatever. If you use both simultaneously, and you look at the answers and you're finding, oh my gosh, I don't know if I did it right. Just understand it's okay. It's okay. It's okay. The pi key or the 3.14, both answers will be just fine. If you had either one of those answers on your worksheet for an answer when we correct it on Friday, you're going to be just fine. Okay? So we're going to stop this video and we're going to head into the book. So that'll be my third video. And you need to have page 617 open with your calculator still next to you as we try a few more problems before you start the worksheet today. See you in the third video.